You know what I'm going to ask you? You know, is it, I'm going to mispronounce your name, I apologize. Can you do that for me one more time? Dima Saboran. It's really not that difficult. It's just it's daunting when you look at it on paper. Would you give her views her views on the evidence any more or less consideration if you were both chosen as jurors in this case, simply by virtue of the fact that you know her?
No.
Okay. Anyone else know or recognize any of the courtroom personnel? Not courtroom personnel. We're past that question. Any of the other potential jurors in the case? Friend, neighbor, coworker? Okay. All right. What I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to read to you a brief summary of the case, and I'm going to then, as I indicated before, I'm going to go row by row and ask whether there's anyone here who believes that they know something about this case, have heard something about this case. I will remind you, do not blurt out what you think you know. I just want to know who thinks they know something about this case. So let me read this to you and then we'll get to that question. In the summer of 2009, the defendant, Ms. Dalia Dippolito, was accused of hiring a person to kill her then husband, Michael Dippolito. The person she allegedly hired turned out to be an undercover Boynton Beach police officer. Ms. Dippolito denies any intent to kill her husband. Reports relating to this case have appeared in the local and national media, including the television show Cops. That's all I'm going to provide at this time in terms of any type of summary of the case. And what I'm going to do is, based on that summary, what I want to do is go row by row, and again, I'm going to ask you, does anyone believe that they know anything about this case based on that simple summary? Let me start in the first row. Anyone who believes that they know anything about this case? Again, we've got juror 1-1, Mr. Souter, okay. And we've got juror 1-2, Mr. Doherty, is that correct? And we have juror 1-4, Ms. Day. We also have, is it juror 1-6, Ms. Tucker? Ms. Tucker? We have juror 1-7, Ms. Peacock. We have juror 1-8, is it Mr. Spear? Spear. Apologize, I'll try to get that correct second time around. I probably won't, but. And juror 110, is it Mundell? Mundell, Ms. Mundell, okay. All right, let's move on to the second row. Anyone in the second row who believes that they may know something about the case? This is Ms. Rodriguez, juror 2-1. Is it Vellamil? Okay, juror 2-2. Ms. Robello, juror 2-3. Juror 2-4, is it Mr. Godwin? And then moving on down, is it, I'm sorry, the hand again, is it Pershinsky? Yeah, I called out your name once before and I messed it up the second time. That's juror 2-7. And then we have, again, Mr. Rodriguez, juror 2-9. Did I miss anyone in the second row? Okay, we'll now move to the third row. Anyone in the third row believes that they know something about the case based on what I read? Mr. Juror 3-1. I mispronounced. It's Riedman. That's how I pronounced it before. It's Riedman, isn't it? Riedman? Riedman. Got it wrong twice. Riedman. Mr. Riedman. Mr. Fawcett, Juror 3-2. Ms. Poole, do you have your hand up? Yeah, okay. Ms. Poole, you have your hand up. Is it Juror 3-4, Ms. Lucina? Yes. Juror 3-5, Ms. Budd? And moving on down, is it Juror 3-7, Mahaber? Mahaber, I'm sorry, I'll probably mispronounce that again too, I apologize. And then is it Juror 3-9, is it Ms. Polis? And Juror 3-10, is it Ramsrup? Yes. Was I close? Yes. Close but not there, right? Okay. Thank you. Did I miss anyone on the third row? Moving to the fourth row. On the fourth row, I've got Ms. Gay. That's Juror 4-2. I've got Juror 4-3, Ms. Canuck. Juror 4-4, Ms. Kilmer. Juror 4-5, Mr. Kulata. And again, juror 4-6, is it Ms. Schwartz? Anyone else that I missed on the 4th row? Okay, moving back to the 5th row. Anyone on the 5th row believes they know or recognize anything about the case? Let me go through this. I've got juror 5-2, Ms. Is it Velasquez? I blew that one badly. Thank you. Juror 5-3, Ms. Sheffer? Yes. Okay. Juror 5-4, Ms. Allen? Is Ms. Damer, I can't pronounce the name, Denise? Your hand's not up, correct? Okay. Juror 5-6, Ms. Guerrero? Yes. 5-7, Mr. Arnold, is that correct? And juror 5-8, Mr. Is it Guadalupe? Okay. Miss anybody on the 5th row? All right. Moving on back to the 6th row. Who on the 6th row believes that they may know something about the case? On the 6th row, let's see, that's 3 in. Is that Mr. Parsons? Mr. Parsons, juror 6-3. Anyone else on the 6th row? All the way down. Is it Ms. Kahn? Yes, sir. Okay, Ms. Kahn. Juror 5-8. Anyone else on the 6th row before I move to the 7th? Okay, moving to the 7th row. On the 7th row, I have Ms. Ramadi. Is that right? Juror 7-1. I have, is it Mr. Ford? Juror 7-2. Ms. Chapnick, juror 7-3. Is that correct? Yes. And moving on down, is it Ms. Ramnarans? Yes. Okay, I'm sure I mispronounced that also. Juror 7-5. And then moving all the way down to the end of that 7th row, is it Ms. Jensen? Yes. Okay, juror 7-9. And also Mr. Murphy, juror 7-10. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Now we're going to move to, did I miss anyone on the 7th row? All right, we're going to move to the 8th row. On the 8th row, is it Ms. Malin? Yes. Okay, juror 8-4. And juror 8-6, is it Rottenberg? Rotenberg. All right, Ms. Rotenberg, juror 8-6. And moving on down, is it Santa Cruz, juror 8-8? Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Santa Cruz, juror 8-8. And also juror 8 and 9, Mr. Gonzalez. Yes, sir. And juror 8-10, Ms. Donnelly. Did I miss anyone on the 8th row? Okay. Moving to the 9th row. On the 9th row, I have juror 9-2, Ms. Hanlon. Yes, Your Honor. Juror 9-3, Ms. Reed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror 9-4, Mr. Brooks.
Correct.
Juror 9-6, is it Ms. Roden? Yes. Let's see, moving on over, is it Ms. Dutton Mitchell? Yes. Okay. Juror 9-8. And then moving on over, is it Ms. O'Brien? Yes, sir. Okay. Anyone I missed on the 9th row? Okay. Moving back to the 10th row. Is there anyone on the 10th row who believes they know or recognize anything about the case? It's juror 10-1. Miss, is it Inabit? Inabit. I'm not going to get it right. I apologize for that. And let's see, juror 10-4, is it Pellegrino? Mr. Pellegrino, juror 10-4. And then moving on down, I got Mr. Arnold, is that correct? Juror 10-8. And next to Mr. Arnold, I have Miss, is it Ronsley? Yes. Ms. Ronsley, juror 10-9. Did I miss anyone on the 10th row? Okay. If at any time you've not raised your hand to that question, and for some reason all of a sudden you think, oh, geez, I think I do know something about the case, what I want you to do is tell me by raising your hand and just telling me, I didn't indicate earlier that I thought I knew something about the case, but now I believe I do. In other words, this is a kind of a continuing duty that you have. If you think that you now know something about the case and you didn't identify yourself earlier, just let me know. Same rules will apply. Don't tell me what you think you know. Just tell me that you think you know something about the case, and we'll handle that. Now, before we go any further, what I want to do is I want to do one other thing before I break you up, because what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up speaking with a lot of you individually. Some of you I'll probably end up releasing now, and some of you I'll be speaking to not individually, but in sort of a kind of a subset or a subgroup. But what I want to deal with next is this issue of whether or not you believe you can serve in the case if you're selected. And so what I'm going to be doing, we kind of describe that most often as hardship. Is there some kind of hardship that would prevent you from serving? Let me first tell you how long we think the case is going to take, so you have some perspective on the case. We think jury selection, as already indicated, is going to take a couple of days. And so, as I said, I'm hoping to get most of you out of here pretty early today, but some of you will be coming back tomorrow. The trial itself, we believe, will start on Monday. We believe the case is going to take 5 to 6 trial days once we have a jury to try. And so what that means is if you're selected for jury service in this case, you'd be in jury duty next week, and you'd probably go into Monday. There's always the possibility, because trials are fluid, you can't predict exactly when they're going to finish. There's always the possibility it could go into Tuesday of the following week. But you could pretty much count on you being here all next week, maybe into Monday of the following week, maybe into Tuesday of the next week. So that's the time commitment that you're going to have. Now let me talk to you about this concept of hardship a little bit, so you understand what we're going to be doing in the process that's going to be involved in that. I already know that it's a hardship for you to be here, because I got about 3 hands raised when I asked that question about being excited to be here, which means about 97 of you want to be someplace else. And I understand that, and many of you feel you may need to be someplace else. And that's fine. I'll talk to you about that if that's the case. But please understand this about this concept of hardship. We are going to select a jury to try this case, which means a group of citizens are going to have to devote their time to this case. The time I've indicated is about 5 to 6 days after we get the jury selected. And so if there's something that you think is going to prevent you from being one of those people because you believe you have some reason why you can't be here for that period of time, it really has to be something that sets you apart. It really needs to be, the legislature describes it as extreme inconvenience. It has to be extreme inconvenience. It's not just any hardship that's going to allow me to legally excuse you from jury service in this case. So let me talk to you about some things that typically come up before I ask this hardship question of each of you. Many times employment will come up as an issue of hardship. A couple things you need to know about employment. First of all, an employer cannot discriminate against you in any fashion for serving on a jury. That's against Florida law. They're actually civilly liable if they do. They're not required to pay you. Each employer gets to set their own payment policies. We do not require employers to pay you for jury service. But no employer can discriminate against you in any fashion if you're on a jury. That's against Florida law. So many times employment will come up as an issue. Now here's something else to understand about the concept of hardship. A hardship has to be a personal hardship. Here's what I mean by that. Because it's going to be hard on your boss, because it's a busy time of year, and you're not going to be there during a busy time of year. That's a hardship for your employer. That's not a personal hardship. It has to be a personal hardship for me to excuse you from jury service. Many times appointments will come up, whether they be medical or other types of appointments. Well, there are all types of appointments. There are some appointments that can be rescheduled. There's some appointments that can't be rescheduled, or at least shouldn't be rescheduled. For example, I've got a routine visit to the dentist coming up next week. Well, that can be rescheduled, and I'm going to ask you to reschedule it. Extreme example, I've got a trip to the oncologist next week. I'm not asking you to reschedule that type of an appointment. I hope that doesn't apply here, but I'm just saying there are different types of appointments that can apply, medical or otherwise. And so if you have an appointment, I'm going to be asking you whether or not you're able to move that appointment around and so that you can accommodate us if you're selected for jury service in this case. Child care is an issue that comes up quite often. Let me talk to you about child care. We're going to be starting early the next couple of days, but after that, the typical trial schedule is going to be around 9:30, 9:45 to 5 o'clock. Most people that have trouble with child care, it's usually in the afternoon, not in the morning. Usually we start late enough that you can get your children to school. But some people have trouble picking up their children if they're on jury duty. If that's the case, I'm going to be candidly asking you, is there someone that can help you? Can a spouse step in? Can a friend? Can a family member? A neighbor? Can someone assist you for a couple of days? So that's important to understand. Now, just a couple more things about this topic of hardship. One thing you need to know about it is that it's completely discretionary with me. And the reason I'm telling you that is, you may think you have a very good hardship. The lawyers may even agree with you. Citizens that are inconvenienced to try this case. And please understand, when I listen to these types of hardships, I have different types of hardships. For example, many times, and I may have teachers here today, probably do, many times teachers will tell me, you know, my students, you know, it's a critical time of year, I really need to be with my students, and they're telling me that it would be a problem for their students is not the teacher, I understand that, but you're also, if you're a teacher for the Palm Beach County School Board, you get paid for your time on jury duty. And so you may be talking to me about a hardship because it's a concern for your students, which I believe, but on the other hand, I may be dealing with someone who's been out of work for 6 months, just got a job, not going to get paid, and it's a real financial hardship if they're going to be here because they're working by the hour, not getting paid. And I have to balance those things when I'm determining who's going to get a hardship and who's not. So please understand there's a balancing process here. Now here's what we're going to do, similar to what we just did. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go row by row, and all I want you to do is if you think you have a hardship, you're going to raise your hand. I'm going to identify you just like I did before. And after we're done with that process, I'm going to explain to you who we're going to be releasing now and how we're going to be going forward. So let me just go row by row. Who wants to talk to me or believes that they have to talk to me about a hardship if they were chosen in this case? On the first row, I have juror 1, 2. Mr. Doherty again, and I have, is it juror 1, 4, Ms. Day? Is that right? No, I'm sorry, 1 over. Ms. Alvarez? I'm sorry, Ms. Alvarez. I've got juror 1, 5. And Ms. Tucker? All right, Ms. Tucker. Anyone else on the first row need to talk to me about hardship? Okay, second row. Anyone on the second row that needs to speak to me about what they believe to be a hardship? Is that Ms. Sun? And Mr. Rodriguez? Okay, and is it Francisco? Mr. Francisco? Okay, anyone else on the second row before I move back to the third row? On the third row, anyone on the third row believes they need to speak to me about hardship? Is that Ms. Poole? And is it Ms. Budd? Anyone else on the third row? On the, I'm off the third row. On the fourth row, anyone on the fourth row believe they need to talk to me about a hardship? Is it, let's see, who has their hand up? Let me start all the way over here. Is it Ms. Gay first? Ms. Gay, and then moving on down, is it Collado?
Yes.
Juror 4, 5, and next to you is Ms. Schwartz again. Okay. And then moving on down, is it Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Okay. Before I move off the fourth row, anyone else on the fourth row? Moving back to the fifth row. On the fifth row, let's see, on the fifth row I have, is it Ms. Sheffer?
Yes.
And moving on down, is it Arnold?
Yes, sir.
Arnold? Okay, on that same row, is it Ms. Nips?
Yes.
Okay, moving on back onto the fifth row. Anyone on the fifth row? I'm sorry, the sixth row. I just finished the fifth row. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Sixth row, is it Jimenez? And then also, is it Mr. Parsons? Mr. Marquise, juror 6-4. Anyone else on the 6th row before I move back to the 7th row? Okay, on the 7th row, moving on back. Anyone want to speak to me about hardship? Juror 7-1. That's Ms. Ramadi, juror 7-2, Mr. Ford. Anyone else on the 7th row? Moving all the way over. Let's see if I can count how far you're over. Is it Trung?
Yes.
Juror 7-7. Okay. All right. Now moving back to the 8th row. Anyone on the 8th row? I've got juror 8-1, Mr. Carolini. And then moving on over, is it juror 8 through, is it Munez? And then I've got Ms. Malin, is that right? Mr. and then juror 8-5, Mr. Benji? Benji, all right. And then I've got juror 8-6, Rothberg.
Yes.
Juror 8-7, Iglesias.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else on the 8th row that I've missed? On the 9th row, I've got Dormer, juror 9-1, juror 9-2, Hanlon. And then moving on down, let me see who I have. Is it Reed?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having a hard time. It's juror 9-7, Ms. Reed. And then moving a little further over, is it Ms. O'Brien?
Yes.
Okay, and then on the last row, the 10th row, who needs to speak to me about hardship? It's Ms. Leto, juror 10-2. Ms. Matthews, is that right? Juror 10-3. Is it Laguerre? Is that it? Did I get it? Okay, juror 10-6. Mr. Arnold, juror 10-8. And then on the very end, juror 10-10, Ms. Martin, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, here's what I'm going to do at this time. I'm trying to figure out the most efficient way to do this so I can let many of you go at this time. Many of you have not raised your hand to either of those questions. Some of you have raised your hands to both questions, all right? What I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to only focus on one question with people that have indicated they have a hardship, but they've not told me whether or not, or they've not indicated that they know anything about the case. And so on the first row, that'd be juror 1-5. Ms. Alvarez, you've indicated you have a hardship, correct? Okay, all right, so here's what we're going to do. If you have not raised your hand to either question, you are going to be released at this time to come back tomorrow morning at 8:30. You're not going to have to hang around. Those that have raised your hand, I'm going to have to speak to you individually about your concerns, your knowledge, and your hardship. Although with the hardships, we're actually going to do it kind of as a group. The other topic we're going to do individually. I think it'll move it along faster. But what I want to do is I want to be in a position where I can release those folks that do not need to be here any further until 9:30 tomorrow. Now, if I call your name and I have somehow misunderstood that you raised your hand to one of these two questions, I need to know about it. But the following people I'm going to go ahead and release at this time. And what we're going to do, just so you know, because it's going to be a madhouse trying to get you. If I release somebody in the middle of the row and you're trying to cut through, it's like in a theater. So what we're going to do is I'm going to call out all the people that can go at this time that don't have to come back. Then we're going to take a very brief break, and then I'm going to bring just the hardship people back in and speak to the hardship people, and then we're going to do the individual or dire. Now, what's important about this is I indicated to you earlier. Once I send you outside of this courtroom, you cannot communicate with anyone about this case. Don't start discussing this case amongst yourselves. No communications, no research, no listening to or reading news accounts of this trial. What we're going to do is after I tell you who can go and come back tomorrow, Everyone else is going to go outside, take about a 5-minute break. If you want to use the restrooms, you can use them. Then I'll tell the deputy who I want to come back in and what order. And so you're going to need to be attentive out there because the deputy's going to tell you to bring back in. And again, the more attention you pay to what we're doing, the faster this is going to move. So I do appreciate if you would follow those instructions. But at this time, I'm going to call out people who do not need to hang around, who can come back, who must follow those 3 instructions I gave you. On the first row, I've got juror 1-3. Donahue has not raised. You can wait until we let everybody go, but when you leave, you just go on home. I don't need you back until tomorrow morning at 8:30, okay? So on the first row, I have juror 1-3 that does not have to hang around. Also on the first row, juror 1-9, Melcher, I do not need to hang around. On the second row, I have juror 2-5, Ms. Eisenberg, you're not going to have to hang around. You just come back tomorrow at 8:30. Juror 2-8 on that row, Hernandez, you'll be released and have to come back tomorrow at 8:30. I don't need you to hang around today. Unless I've missed something. Obviously, if I missed something, you can let me know. On the third row, jurors 3-6, Ms. Sochik does not need to hang around. On the fourth row, Peterson, you do not need to hang around. You can come back at 8:30 tomorrow morning. On the very end of that row, juror 410, Viteri. I do not need you to hang around. You've not raised your hand at either point. Going back to the fifth row, juror 5-1, Galindo. I do not need to hang around. Come back at 8:30 tomorrow. Moving all the way to the end of that row, juror 510, I think it's Bochner. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Bochner, you do not need to hang around. Moving to the sixth row, juror 6-2, Gratian. You don't need to hang around. You can come back at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Still on the sixth row, juror 6-5, Hazari. Do you not need to hang around? You can come back 8:30 tomorrow. Next to you, Mr. Rowlett. You do not need to hang around. You can come back tomorrow morning. Also next to you, juror 6-7, Blanc. You can come back tomorrow at 8:30. Do not need you to hang around. Same row, juror 6-9, Mr. Lambert. You can come back tomorrow. Do not need you to hang around. Juror 6-10, is it Funk?
Yes.
Okay, right next to you. You can come back at 8:30 tomorrow. Moving back to the seventh row, juror 7-4, is it Singh? Did I get that right? Singh, you can come back tomorrow at 8:30. Do not need you to hang around. Juror 7-6, again, Douglas. You do not need to hang around. Come back at 8:30 tomorrow. Juror 7-8, Patterson. Come back tomorrow morning. Moving to the eighth row, juror 8-2, Shorten, Susan Shorten. You can come back tomorrow. Do not need you to hang around at this time. On the ninth row, Mr. Shaw, juror 9-5. Do not need you to hang around. Also on that row, very end, juror 9-10, is it Thielot? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but juror 9-10, do not need you to hang around. You can come back tomorrow at 8:30. Juror 10-7, Ms. Prince, you do not need to hang around. You can come back at 8:30 tomorrow. Also on the 10th row, Matthew, is it Coca? You do not need to hang around. You can come back tomorrow. Now, just a couple of things before I release you. I can't understand your signal. 3-8. Did I miss 3-8? Oh, that's right. I had a little note. Okay, Mr. Sherrod. You also didn't answer. Juror 3-8, you're also free. Counsel, if you feel free to correct me if I missed someone, but 3-8, Mr. Sherrod, you also do not need to hang around. You can come back tomorrow morning. Now, for anyone that's coming back tomorrow morning, and in particular those people I just called out once I release you, when you come back tomorrow morning, what I want you to do is you go to that jury assembly room where you started, you sign in, you wait there. We'll call you to come up. So I'm going to have you all wait down there. I'll repeat it again. I'm releasing a bunch of you right now. Do not communicate about this case. Do not do any research about this case. And do not listen to or read any news accounts of the trial. At this time, I'm going to give everyone about a 5-minute break. Those people that I've released for the day, come back tomorrow at 8:30. Everyone else, I'll give you further directions in just a moment.
Oh, no.
Yes, ma'am. If you have, hang on right for one moment, ma'am. I'll wait till everyone clears, and we'll get the question on the record, okay?
Judge, everyone on for late?
Everyone's taking a break. The people that I called out and said they didn't need to come back can be released. Those are the ones that didn't raise their hand at either question.
Everyone's going to exit now, and we'll bring back, right?
Correct. Everyone has to exit, although someone has a question for me, I believe. Who has, two people have questions for me? Three people, okay. Well, you can remain, I'll answer those questions, but everyone else needs to remove themselves from the courtroom. Counsel, you may be seated. Let me do this. If you would each individually step up to that microphone, identify yourself first, because I need to know who I'm speaking to. I can't use the seating chart, and then let me know your question. And you are, ma'am?
Yeah, my name is Bella Victory.
I'm sorry, your name again?
Bella Victory.
410. Okay, thank you very much.
No,
Okay.
my question is because I understand some English, no? But when the person is talking about, I don't have retain in my mind. Right?
Okay, let me see if I can kind of follow up on what you're telling me. English is your second language, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, your first language, Spanish?
Spanish, yes.
Okay. Are you able to understand
Yeah.
what's been happening in the courtroom? In other words, have you understood me, or have you been at places where you're saying, I don't know what the judge is talking about?
No, my problem is I understand when you're talking, but is allowing information I can retain.
You can't retain it. So it's not a matter of understanding, it's you can't retain it.
For that reason, when you made a question, you what, and I don't have to respond. And for example, I say the question is, you name me, I don't know, it's come back tomorrow or today, I don't know. I don't hear that.
Okay, what I had asked you to do before was to come back tomorrow because you had not raised your hand to either question. I had asked the question, I'd read a brief statement of what the case is about, and I've asked everyone whether you know or recognize anything about the case. I've also asked everyone whether they believe they have a hardship and couldn't serve. Everyone that either knew something about the case, thought they knew something about the case, or had a hardship raised their hand. You didn't do either one, and so that's why we're saying you can come back tomorrow morning. But I have another concern. Are you having, you say you're having difficult retaining it.
Yeah.
Is that because of the language issue, or is that for some other reason?
I don't know, maybe I put nervous. I put so nervous.
Okay, so
I would like to serve for jury. I would like, but, and my question is not problem is I can I can.
Okay, it's fine. Let me ask you to do this. Before I don't want you to leave yet. I'm going to hear what the other young ladies want to tell me. I want you to wait outside for just a minute, and I may call you back in just a second, okay? So I know I indicated before you can leave and come back at 8:30. Don't do that. Just wait outside for a minute, and I'll call you back in, okay? All right. All right, next.
I'm Handler Parsons.
Parsons, Miss Parsons. What row are you in?
Row 4.
Row 4. 4-8. You guys are knowing your numbers already. Handler Parsons, okay.
Well, you didn't tell me to come back at 8:30, but I answered no to both questions.
I'm sorry. I missed you. You're right. You answered no to both questions. And also, I think Miss Sanchez. I may have missed Miss Sanchez.
Yes.
Both of us right next to each other. I really appreciate you picking up on that. I had a little K there for you knew somebody else, but it didn't have to do with the case or anything. So I'm very happy that you corrected me. So both of you are excused until 8:30 tomorrow morning. You do not need to hang around. I'm hoping I didn't miss anyone else, but I appreciate you pointing that out to me.
All right, thank you.
All right, so you're released until 8:30.
Okay.
Hang on just a minute. Hang on. The council wants to approach for just a minute. Ms. Sanchez, hang around for just one moment, okay? I just want to ask a couple follow-up questions. Ms. Handler Parsons, you are excused, and again, don't communicate about the case, do any research, or listen to or read news accounts of the trial. Ms. Sanchez, just for the record, if you could go back to that microphone, there was one follow-up question I had to ask. You did indicate that you knew one of the attorneys in the case.
I just reconcile. Yeah.
Okay. Anything about the fact that you have some, at least facial recognition with respect to one of the attorneys that's seated at defense counsel, anything about that which in any way would impact your ability to be fair and impartial in this case?
Oh, no.
Okay. The attorneys want to ask any follow-up questions on this? No. State? Okay. Now you may come back at 8:30 tomorrow morning.
All right,
I'll see you
thank you.
tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, I wish there were a quicker way to do this. There isn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start. I thought about calling in the hardship people in a group and speaking about hardship, but the problem is there's so much crossover between the hardship and the knowledge that I might as well just bring them. There's only about a handful of people that want to speak to me about hardship but not knowledge, and so it probably, we got to have the individual conferences anyway. I might as well just bring them in individually from here forward.
All right. If we could cause 410, I think it's pretty clear. She couldn't understand.
I was going to ask you, that was the next thing I was going to do. On 410, what do you guys want to do on 410? You want to let her go? And that's why I asked her to hang around. Okay, so would you for 410 back?
Juror 410.
But Terry, you can just come forward. You don't have to come to your assigned seat. Just kind of come up close to that microphone. Counsel, you may be seated. Ms. Viteri, we're going to go ahead and release you from jury service in this case. You're not going to have to come back tomorrow. We're letting you go now. So we're going to release you. All you have to do is go downstairs, the first floor where you started out, turn in that juror badge, let them know I've released you from jury service, but you do not have to come back. Do me this favor, though. Please do not discuss anything about this case with anyone as you leave. You're just released from jury service, and we appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might as well get started. We'll start with 1-1 and work our way through.
Juror 1-1.
Counsel, you may be seated. All right, Mr. Slaughter, you get to start first. You indicated that you believe you know something about the case. So I'm going to ask you, what do you believe you know about the case?
She'd been previously tried and convicted.
Okay, and the source of this information would be what?
The news, and also I've seen it on Cops.
Okay, so you
I saw
have...
it on the news quite a bit,
Okay.
the whole story.
All right, so you've seen the story, you've kept up with the story, you know, as you indicated, that there was a previous trial conviction, and you have been seeing things. I'm going to ask the attorneys to come forward for just a minute and speak to them in private. Okay, Mr. Sutter, I appreciate your disclosure, and based on the disclosure, we're going to release you from jury service in this case. You're not going to have to come back. All you have to do is go downstairs to the first floor jury assembly room where you started and turn in your juror badge, but please do not discuss anything with any of the other potential jurors. Okay, thank you. What microphone is swinging back? Okay, before you bring in the next one, let me just discuss this issue. I should have raised this before. What I want to do, obviously, if you want to ask questions, you can ask questions. You have a right to. I'm going to ask you whether you want to ask questions. If neither one of you wish to ask questions, which signals to me you can do the back scroll method is you can put two post-it notes up you both agree. If first give both sides the right to question. After, I'll just look for I know it's polite to is it juror 1, 2?
Juror 1, 2.
All right, Mr. Dockert, if you can come forward. You can have a seat, you can stand, whatever you're comfortable doing. Counsel, you may be seated. You indicated, raised your hand on 2 issues. What I really want to talk to you about first is you indicated you thought you knew something about the case. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me what you believe you know?
Just what I recall from a couple of years ago on the news.
And what is that you recall?
Just hearing your synopsis of the case, I was reminded of the hiring of the individual to commit the act, and hearing a little bit more about that, and then possibly where she worked back at that time.
Okay, can you recall any other details?
That's really it.
Okay, now, what you do recall about the case, do you recall the source?
No, just the general media, not media at the time, but CNN News, all that type of source.
Have you listened to or reading the news accounts of this trial recently?
No, all politics stuff lately.
Okay, so you've been involved in the politics. Okay, but so this was a couple of years ago. You can't recall specifically. Have you reached any conclusions about the case as a result of what you heard or read?
No.
Do you have any preconceived notions about this case? Okay, Ms. Lawyer, go ahead.
You mentioned that you had heard something and where she worked. What is your recollection of that?
That she was.
All right, Mr. Doherty, we're going to go ahead and release you from jury service in this case, and you will not need to come back. Simply turn in your juror badge on the first floor, and please do not discuss anything related to this case with any of the potential jurors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Juror 1-4.
Juror 1-4.
Stay wherever you're comfortable. First row is fine. You can stand or sit. Counselor may be seated. About the case, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell me what you believe you know about the case?
I watch the 5 o'clock news every night, and I have seen the defendant on the TV, and I have been married for 43 years and don't believe I could be impartial.
Okay. Based on your review of television news, what you believe you know about the case, you're telling us you could not be fair and impartial in this case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Ms. Day, we're going to go ahead and excuse you from jury service in this case. All you have to do is go downstairs to the jury assembly room where you started. You turn in that juror badge and you're discharged. You don't have to come back. Please do not discuss anything about this case with any of the other potential jurors. Thank you. You will not. I understood what you meant. Okay. Juror 1-5. Counsel, this is a straight hardship. I will give you, even though it's my discretion on hardship, I'll give you a moment to ask a question if you've got a follow-up question you want to ask after I talk. But I'll make the decision on the spot, so I'll be telling them whether to come back or not.